The following episode does not constitute medical advice and is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's like GPS for your life. The Sky Vibe Show. Authentic, practical astrology in easy-to-understand terms. With your host, Judy Diamond, and professional astrologer, Thomas Miller. Welcome to another edition of the Sky Vibe Astrology Show podcast. I am your co-host, Judy Diamond, along with professional astrologer Thomas Miller, and I have some questions for you, Thomas.
I'm always ready for astrology questions.
Okay, first of all, well, thank goodness, because I am, like I always say, a 5-year-old when it comes to Astro Speak. So,
Okay.
I have been seeing a lot of stuff on TikTok, and I've actually had direct messages about Saturn returns in somebody's chart and in their life, and I have no idea what that means.
Okay. Well, the area of returns in astrology to begin with, that's a terminology. So sometimes we have to kind of dip into, astro speak. But, think of the astrology wheel. Everybody, I'm sure, can visualize the round astrology wheel. All we're doing is we're looking at the ecliptic line up in space. So this is the miracle of the sky. And we've talked about it on here, I think, on more than one episode.
Yes.
That, the finger of God or the hand of God. Psalm 19:10 says, the heavens declare the wonder or the glory of God. I mean, this is the thing that I think it would take a lot more to believe that a random explosion and all of our planets from Mercury to Pluto, including the orbit of our own moon, falls into a circle. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's this guy on Twitter, his name is Andrew McCarthy, and he is an artist with a telescope. He does space art with his the guy is amazing.
Wow.
And the other day, from when we're recording this in late 2024, Saturn and the moon, we had an eclipse, and the moon and Saturn were just almost aligned in the sky. And he drove somewhere to get in position where he took a picture of the moon, which, of course, in his telescope is much bigger, with Saturn just on the horizon on the edge of the moon. It was the coolest shot in the world because they're all that close in a circle. So, hello. And if you think about the astrology circle, the wheel, you've got all these planets spotted around on the wheel, depending on what time of year it is. And all we're doing is looking at how one is connected to the other. That's all it really is.
The interesting thing about what you said, and I know I asked about Saturn returns, but I have to pivot because it just leads into a question from someone who I am off and on dating. At this point, I'm not sure yet because of something he said.
Uh-oh.
First off, he's an atheist, which is fine. You can believe whatever you want. But he was, in a way, making fun of me as I was talking about astrology. And he said, really, Judy? Like all those planets in the sky have anything to do with me taking a walk and getting hit by a bus or me making money? He goes, I can't buy it. I didn't know how to answer that.
That's a great question. And, any kind of critical or skeptical question about astrology, I love them. Because there's always a good answer, or we don't have anything, right?
Right.
What he was asking at the end of the day was a question about fate versus free will. That's what he's asking. He said, am I a puppet on a string that somebody else is pulling the string?
He just doesn't believe that the planets have anything to do with us.
Well, and he doesn't believe that God has anything to do with us.
No, he's an atheist.
Because he doesn't believe that there is a God, right? So, this is a question that has been asked through the ages.
Mm-hmm.
Are we puppets on a string? Do we have choice in our destiny? Or is all of this, are we just, as Shakespeare said, just actors on the stage?
Mm-hmm.
And the script has already been written. We're just playing a role. Obviously, I don't think the answer is on either extreme. Nobody that I follow in astrology ever says that the planets control our destiny. What we're looking at here is probabilities, energies. We had a pop-up shower out here in Southern California yesterday, and evidently down by Palm Springs there was a tornado, a little funnel cloud in the sky in one of these cells.
Wow.
Well, at some point during the day yesterday, and I think the whole thing was kind of a pop-up, but there was a front moving through. This happens all the time. The weather forecasters are able to say there is the probability of a tornado today. You have it happen all the time in St.
Yeah, live
Louis.
it.
I grew up in Tulsa, Tornado Alley.
Alley, yes.
You're looking at what is the probability, and then they'll attach a percentage to it. Well, there's a 60% chance of tornadic activity this afternoon. Well, that gives you a structure of possibility. Does that mean that something out there is controlling the sky, or that the weatherman is going to somehow make the tornado happen? No, not at all. What's he doing? Showing you what's possible.
Which means you can go and find some hiding place to go to. It's like I told him, here was my answer. My non-professional astrologer answer was this. First, I said, let me ask you a question. Because what? And I go, how do you think that building that you're so into that you own was made? It was made with a thought first. What is thought? Thought is energy. It all is a vibe. Hence the Sky Vibe show. I kind of stumped him with that one because it really, everything that you see starts with energy. It's a thought. Nothing can be built without it. Mm-hmm. So why can't that energy from the sky affect the energy that we are?
No, I think it totally does, within the realm of probability or possibility.
A roadmap.
That there could be a challenge in this particular area. And astrology, and we'd have to get into astro speak to define an example, but all the time, that's how you look at the chart. You say, boy, there could be some tension around your relationship today. Or
in communication. We all know
bingo.
Mercury in retrograde.
Yep.
That's astro speak that we understand. So be ready that just take a second before you send that text.
Does that mean that you're going to have communication issues and some conversation is going to blow up in anger? No. Because here's the deal. Here's the answer to his question. We have the freedom of choice. To me, that's an inalienable right that we as humans have. I have a choice. I can choose. You have the ability to choose.
God gave us the ability to reason. God gave us the ability to choose.
So he's talking about some random accident. You wouldn't say, well, I didn't choose to go get hit by a bus today. Was that fated that I did? No, I don't believe that it was. Mm-hmm. But I do think that, and we'll talk about an example here that's in the news as we're recording this, of something that I think is somewhat fated. So I think that, that's what I say is the answer is not on either extreme. There is a blend in the middle. And I think that what the beauty of astrology is it gives us a roadmap. I call it the Google map of our soul. It gives us a broad structure. And maybe there is some kind of an alignment in the sky that says accidents could happen today. I've seen that, and I have seen accidents happen around that.
You could say it's a GPS, God's planets or signs, GPS.
There you go. I love it. I love it. But we still have free choice. So if you know that there's a propensity for an accident on a given day, you can choose to shore it up a little bit and be more cautious. Mm-hmm. And that's just enough to move the needle away from the accident.
Or to wait 1 day or 2 days if you're about to sign a contract for a job or buying a house. If you're in a Mercury in retrograde, you might want to dot your I's and cross your T's.
Yeah. Just like when the storm popped up, let's say the weather people had been predicting it. I hadn't been looking at the weather. I wanted to go play some late afternoon golf.
Don't do that.
What did I do? I waited until it cleared. Mm-hmm. No brainer.
Yeah.
Was anything controlling that? Was I a puppet on the end of a string? Did the gods pull a funnel out of the sky so that I couldn't play golf when I wanted to? None of the above.
And so I suppose this definitely does then go into the question of a Saturn return, because there's that energy of Saturn, which is, from what I understand, Saturn is the planet that is, I don't know how to put it in a sentence. You'd probably be better at it.
Lord Karma.
Karma. That's
Two
it.
words.
That's it. It's kind of like Chiron in a way, isn't it?
Well, Saturn
Chiron's past lives, though.
I think Saturn has a very specific purpose, and that is that, now this gets into woo-woo a little bit, but I think we came here with a plan for our soul in this lifetime. And Saturn is highly responsible for keeping us aligned if we choose. And like I said, we have the choice to not want to follow this stuff, like your friend. Mm-hmm. And if we don't follow it, then Saturn just goes, have a nice life,
Yeah.
But if we
Dumbledore, that's what it was. Saturn's like Dumbledore,
like
from Harry
Dumbledore.
Potter.
So if we are trying to live a conscious life, if we're trying to live a spiritual life, and this is something that your friend can't relate to. So really, there is one of my favorite sayings in the world. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. He was a Jesuit priest, but he was kind of a progressive priest. That's how he's described online, at least. In other words, he was thinking outside of the box, way ahead of his time. And he had a phrase, a quote that he's famous for. We are not human beings that have a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience.
One of my favorite quotes of all time.
So what he's saying by that is there's two ways to look at life. There's two ways to look at spirituality. Your friend is looking at it as a human being having or choosing not to have a spiritual experience, opting out. There is no God. We're all just here. We die. That's it. Some of us look at it the other way, that we are an eternal soul, and we have come here for this experience, this human experience. And within that, there are lessons and choices and paths and all kinds of tangents and roads and synchronicities, and it's a wonderful journey. And we can tune into that. And when we do, then we get on a spiritual path. It's what Jesus said when he was talking to Nicodemus in John chapter 3. You must be born again, born of the Spirit. You're having this, here's your human body. That's Nicodemus looks at him and says, huh? And Jesus says, well, yeah, you have to be born of the flesh. That's our natural physical birth, obviously. And then we have to have a spiritual birth. And some people don't. And some people choose not to. Sounds like your friend isn't interested in that.
It's funny. You just nailed it, because he is not somebody who gets deep into his emotions. It's very hard for him. And I thought that's what it is. Right when you were saying that, I go, you have to get deep into and it's not easy for some people to do that.
Yeah, but he's making a choice, which he has absolute right to do, and will not find.
And I can have the right to judge him if I want.
Yeah, and then you have the choice
kidding.
of how you interact with that.
Right, exactly.
It all fits together.
Yeah, interesting.
So, yeah,
well, thank you.
That's the way we thread that part together of how the spirit and our humanity intertwine on this journey. And to me, what astrology does is it just opens the light to that path that we've chosen. So, if you think about it, or if you choose to believe this way, that we were born at the time that we were born in order to be the age that we are at this time right now, this critical juncture in our human path. I think it's terribly exciting. I
love it. I love it as a guide. I love it as a way of explaining myself a little bit more and understanding people. And that's why I'm so curious about Saturn Return. And you said there was something. Now, I'm usually the one bringing the trends, and you said there was something in the news that this is a good example of.
Well, Saturn returns. Any planet returns. What that means is that it's been moving in the sky, and from the day of your birth, wherever that planet was, we're talking about Saturn, wherever Saturn was at the time of your birth, Saturn takes 29 years to go around the sun. So in that period of time, Saturn will come back to where it was on the day that you were born. All right.
When you say where it was, are you talking about the house? Do you see what I'm saying? Because that's where I get confused.
Yeah, everything about the marker of where your Saturn is. This example we're going to look at for Saturn is at 16 degrees, almost 17 degrees in the sign of Aquarius. That's what we're talking about, is it comes back to that geometric point in the sky identified by the constellations and the degrees. That's what we're talking about here. 16 degrees. Well, there are 30 degrees per sign. And this Saturn happens to be in Aquarius. So it comes back to that original position at about our age 28, 29. And then it happens again at about age 59. And then if we are so blessed and we live a long life, it will happen again in the late 80s, about 88. So,
my dad's 89.
Oh, there you go. See? And each one is kind of a a rite of passage to a new third of our life, if you will. And that last one is kind of when we start to set our sights on going home. It's really a beautiful picture, a beautiful image. But that first one, if you think about what happens in our first 20-something years, is we're learning about ourselves. We're learning about life. We're getting an education. We're meeting somebody. Maybe we have kids. We start a career. All of these things usually happen before we're 30, unless you, go into some super subspecialty of medicine and you're still in school until you're about 35. But still, you're getting close. Well, so one thing Saturn does, as we mentioned before, is that it reconciles us to our path. And sometimes it has a different plan than we might have launched into, not being fully conscious. And by the time we get up to our late 20s, it might throw some things in our path that could readjust our course. So people who are married might get divorced at that age. Let's say they married early, and now the 7-year period, that 7-year itch clock has struck. Or maybe people change jobs kind of abruptly or move from one part of the country to the other. I've known people that all of these things have happened.
All those things happened for me in that year for me. In fact, 29, I was moving. I was trying to juggle being a mom, and I changed career paths all within that time frame.
See, that's the stuff of Saturn Returns.
Crazy.
And then it happens again, but when you're setting up the one that happens in your late 50s, that's kind of reconciling all of your adult life now pivots as you start to enter your 60s, because the next shift and focus is what kind of an older person am I going to be? Am I going to be a mentor and a model? And as my friend Stephen Forrest says, a really cool old person, which they do exist.
We need more of them.
Or am I going to be a grumpy old toot?
Yeah.
And that's kind of
we need the mentors,
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the choice that we have at that point is we can choose, how am I going to set up this last part of my life? So that second Saturn return is not so much the realignment necessarily as the first one at 28, 29, 30. It's more of a, what are we going to do with the next how many ever years I have left? Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, if you get up into your dad's age, then really it's a closure. You're kind of starting to close the book and look
Which is crazy because he was 88 when my mom passed.
Yeah.
And so married to her almost his whole adult life. He was like 19 when they married. So that's a whole new chapter for him. And I, we've talked about it. He's really smart, still all there. His body's slowing down a little bit, but he's all of a sudden I said, Dad, are you lonely at all? And he goes, no, I'm actually kind of enjoying my company, which I thought was cool. I mean, obviously he was sad when my mom passed, but he's at this new kind of time frame of what can I do now?
Yeah. And see, that's a way that he's chosen to approach it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have at each one of these junctures is we have this choice of how we're going to choose to experience the shift. Mm-hmm. But there are these 3 big shift points in our life. Now, I ran across one as we're recording this just a couple of days ago. This is late 2024. We are in the middle of the 2024 election season, and it is hot and thick and heavy, and everything's going on. And I saw this story where Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who at the time of this recording, like when y'all are listening to this, what's happened and we don't. It's like we're still in the clouds here. And we don't get into politics here. We're not taking any sides at all on this, totally neutral in the conversation, but just reporting what's going on, that RFK Jr. has endorsed Donald Trump and has been campaigning on his behalf. Well, come to find out, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., was in a sexting relationship with now he's 70,
okay,
with a 31-year-old reporter from New York Magazine, including that she, during the months that they were doing this, that she sent him even nude pictures.
Why would you do that if you're a reporter? Come on.
Well,
I mean, in this day and age,
31, totally
31 should know better.
Totally at the top of her game.
Yeah.
Like she had rocketed to the top. She worked for an incredibly prestigious publication in journalism. She was the Washington correspondent. She was engaged to Ryan Lizza, who was the chief correspondent for Politico. And I just find the contrast of this very interesting because you have, I mean, let's just say liberal side reporters and
Right.
RFK, who was trying to play the middle and then threw his support to Trump. Both sides of this election are affected by this news story in a way,
Right.
In a sense. But she's 31, and I got to thinking about this, and I thought, well, okay, that's a little bit past the window of the Saturn return. When I say 28, 29, usually it's about year and a half to 2 years before, and then it starts to fade out, let's say a year and a half later. So she's a little past this. However, when we go back and look at when this started, it was still within the window of her Saturn return, absolutely for sure. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that we've talked about, the planet Neptune is getting ready to leave the sign of Pisces in early 2026. And so many of these different areas of life, secrets are coming out. They're being exposed. And that's a very much a thing of Neptune. That's what Neptune is all about, the deep secrets.
But you mentioned something in the last show. I want to bring this up because I'm looking at her chart. She's a Capricorn. And isn't something moving out of Capricorn and into Aquarius?
That's Pluto. Yeah.
And would that be in her? Because I can't see a Capricorn woman doing this.
And this is one of the last things that we talked about. So back to your friend's question. Mm-hmm. Did the planets have something to do with this situation? That she had the choice. She could have, I guess she did an interview with him, and then that's what led to this. She could have just stopped it right there. And so could he. That's a choice. What were they thinking? That she's going to put her career online to do this? I mean, any journalist, if she went to journalism school, she should have been taught this, that you do not put yourself in that kind of position with somebody that you're covering for your publication.
Unless, and this is just speculation, unless you're getting paid millions of dollars.
You think this might have been set up?
I'm just saying. It just sounds pretty crazy that somebody who is, by the way, born under the sign of Capricorn, who is known for not doing these kinds of things.
No, it's not. This is uncharacteristic.
And very uncharacteristic, which is why it surprises me. But again, if she was in her Saturn return, that's pretty fascinating.
How would $50 million do you for now and then a long-term contract at MSNBC after this?
That's what I'm saying. It's hard to turn to, you're faced with that kind my and you're going,
blow up
Capricorns are all about money.
Oh,
right?
Oh, Lord. I don't know.
I never know. I'm just putting it out there. I
didn't know we were going there, but
I didn't say I believed it or not, but it's something to think about.
Well, okay.
Right? He's like, that's I'm not going to say either way. I'm not saying whether I'm a liberal or a conservative. I'm just saying it makes you wonder.
And we're talking here about all kinds of possibilities. And, I guess within that, it certainly could. But I will say this, that this is the kind of thing of Saturn Returns. This is a classic example of something with Saturn Return. She just happened to do the setup part during it and then got busted with Neptune going, I'm going to expose a lot of stuff on a lot of people. We're just in the backside of Diddy getting arrested, and all these CEOs, and especially in the music business, are resigning their jobs, and everybody's going, wonder what's getting ready to be found out there. So it's like we're just in this phase where so many things are coming to light now, and this is the kind of thing of Neptune. It definitely is, as you mentioned, and we talked about in a previous episode, the stuff of Pluto cleaning up the old, stodgy, doesn't serve, this kind of thing, these hidden secrets, shadows that are no longer going to be part of the future energy that we've been talking about. This is not where we're headed. Aquarius Pluto for the next 20 years is not this kind of stuff. And it's
where
cleaning
this
it up.
makes and cleaning it up, and where it really hits me as how can you not kind of believe this stuff? And this is for me is, again, I go back to Saturn Return, as I understand it, is when you are faced with, okay, you have a choice here. What are you going to do with your life? A lot of things shake up at that moment. You make decisions. And that is the only way that I could see a Capricorn, I'm going back to that, doing something like that, is if she was in a Saturn return.
Well, this goes back to your friend's question. And I will just say this. We have enough in this chart, just looking at this one little area, this Saturn return window, that we're really past, but she was really doing it during the Saturn return time, presuming that what you said is not the case. She put her career on the line. She might get fired. She probably will. She lost her engagement. She certainly is being publicly humiliated over this. She put Kennedy, they together put him in jeopardy. And look at the ripple effect of this one choice that these two people made.
Wow.
And what you're talking about is, yes, absolutely. Now comes the reconciliation, and we can see it in the chart. And I'll tell you this, Judy, that happens over and over and over and over, where something happens, we go back and look at the chart, and we can see exact connections. And I mean,
wow.
That to me says that there is more here than, and your friend sarcastically saying, are you saying that the chart has an effect on me going out and getting hit by a bus? And yet I can say I can see this kind of thing in charts hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of times. Mm-hmm. So the correlation is there, irrefutably there. Mm-hmm. Now, what you choose to do with that, you say, well, did it have any effect, or did it just reflect that it might be possible for it to happen? See, that moment of your birth, this is why in astrology it's so important to know your exact birth time, because that moment of the time that you were born is the snowflake imprint. It is uniquely yours, and it has the characteristics of all of these areas of how things might unfold in your life. It is truly incredible.
I think it's also showing a Saturn return of things that you may have never thought about doing. And for anybody who's going through a Saturn return, they go, oh my gosh, I'm going through this now. Just know there is a light at the end of the tunnel, because there's a reason you're going through all of this. It's for transformation.
Totally is. Yes, absolutely.
If you want to learn more about what all those little symbols mean, Thomas has a great online, how you learn about astrology. It's Astrology 101.
Yes, it's the 101 course, right.
Yeah, it's so inexpensive, and you can go back to it again and again, because I know a lot of people might look at this chart and go, I don't know what any of this means.
Well, the idea of that course is to get you to where you can know what all of this means, and it gets you to that point. And it's nominally priced, and it's available at funastrology.com, right there on the homepage.
Yep, I know. I use it, and what's beautiful is
You're in it.
I'm in it. Wherever I'm stopped at, even if I go back 2 months later, it takes me to where I was at my lesson plan at that time. I'm on lesson 3 or whatever it is. And the way you do it is so easy to understand. So that's at funastrology.com. Thomas did not tell me to say any of that. And I am not taking a percentage. So just know this is just something that I think is really important, and you'll understand it even more. I wish I could get my friend to take it.
I do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Subscribe to the Sky Vibe, the podcast, and it's free on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you.